Hello. How are you?
Nice and warm in here.
It is.
I can't believe how cold it was. Way over here.
Yeah.
Is Corey coming or?
Corey?
Corey, did you not see that message
Oh,
from her?
jeez, no.
She said she was exposed to Susan on Monday, so she.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I figured you maybe got back to her prior.
No. I had to actually, the budget meetings were here today, so I had to go to that.
Oh, sure.
So is Michael gonna be the secretary?
I guess he is.
Alright, good.
Anybody else coming?
Right, my mask assuming might be safer for all. Oh, wow, wait a minute. Do we
would
have a
not
quorum?
We would not have a quorum, so I guess
Oh,
she's
but
coming.
Gretchen's coming.
Is she?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't matter, I mean.
We don't vote on it.
presentation. We
Yeah,
just
that's
don't
true. We
vote
just
on
won't
it.
accept the minutes.
Exactly,
Hi.
who cares?
And I've got my mask too, so.
Yeah.
I should wear one. Sure.
Julia, thank you so much for writing them to find out the status.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Aaron
thank you.
suggested that, we figure out what's going on, so.
They were wanting to know, so.
Sure.
I mean, I think originally well, it was changed to the fourth, but,
Okay, so then it's only gonna be the three of us and Gretchen.
Corey's not coming?
Wait a minute, she didn't say she wasn't coming, she
Corey
asked
didn't
for
say she
advice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Full disclosure. Oh, if you want me to zoom, I can. Shoot, let's turn off. I didn't see it till just,
Right, sure.
nobody else.
No one responded to her, so I thought maybe you called her privately or something like that. Yeah, sure.
I guess we'll see.
No, of course.
So all that means is we just can't vote on anything, so we can't like.
If she doesn't come, I suspect she'll come because no one said anything one way or the other.
Now, is Laura coming tonight or no?
Probably. And Ken.
Probably.
Ellen, no, Zoom. You know what's funny? I think I just threw out my freaking mask.
Yeah, are you gonna have one of mine?
Michael didn't come, so.
I know, I have one in the car. Let's just be all
But
spacious.
Corey is, I mean, if Corey comes.
I'll go to my car and get my mask.
Oh, because she,
Well,
was
Susan-
with somebody who,
Susan
yeah.
on Monday, I mean.
Well, I think if
That
Corey-
color of that jacket, Julia,
Oh,
is.
thank you. As you drove up, I thought, that's the sound of an EV.
I love that it sounds like angels singing.
It does.
And it's also the same sound my hearing aids make if somebody hugs me. It's like, oh,
Oh, you should have told me that.
I had no idea.
yeah.
Have you had them a while?
Yeah, I should have had them since I was about 32, but I got them when I was about 46.
My brother has one. And
Really?
then I was like, I want one. No, and they're like, yeah, you don't need one.
They're so great. I need to upgrade mine because now they make them with Bluetooth.
That's what he said. He
yeah,
answers it on his phone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm like, I didn't even, yeah.
my father, I finally convinced him. He had hearing aids, but he'd gotten the ones that go totally in your ear because he thought it was more subtle.
Yeah.
And I said, it sounds like you're talking all the time with your fingers in your ears
Oh.
because your own voice is trapped inside your head.
Oh.
And so when you start eating, it is a gross experience. And I said, you have got to try the ones that I have. And it had gotten to where I couldn't talk to him on the phone because he couldn't hear me. And I would be screaming and he couldn't hear me. And I could tell, and he'd say, write me an email and tell me what you just said. And he finally got some that are like the ones that I have. Only his are a step up. They have the Bluetooth. Game changer.
Wow.
Wow.
Game changer.
All right.
Is that Susan on our participant list? I saw one participant.
Oh.
She has to be let in, I guess, or?
See over there.
Right.
This is so sensitive. Oh, it's Bill watching us.
Oh, okay. Larking.
No, I think it's actually us. Yeah, if you see something, say something.
Well, okay then.
So, I guess I should wait until,
Yeah, what time is it now?
yeah.
Okay.
We still got 7 minutes. I was so worried about being late that I just threw money on the table and left.
Oh, yeah.
You
know, that always happens, like, they know I'm going to a meeting. We were both at a pizza place.
Oh, okay.
And it happens where, like, I was getting ready, and then all of a sudden 2 people ordered a margarita. And I was like, oh, this is gonna take forever. And I was like, crap. So then I was like, when do you get a chance? And she's like, okay, let me just, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I just,
Yeah.
And so she had me 2, and I was like, all right. Who gets a margarita on a Wednesday?
Who gets a margarita at the pizza place?
That's true.
That's
At a pizza, that's true.
Not to cast aspersions, but
But, yeah. So you didn't have any updates to the agenda? So it was
No.
okay.
No. Except the dates.
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign that it still says it's out for review. Our
Oh, yeah.
first
I
thing.
think so too.
Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, it's not bad. I mean,
no, and I think the reason it's taking so long, this is my guess, is that we got it in so under the wire and probably everybody else did
Oh, I'm
too.
sure
If
that's
we had
true.
sent it in 4 months earlier.
Yeah. But did you notice with our number, we were the 5th one, Alex was the 5th one in line.
Well,
Oh, that's interesting.
and I did notice that, and part of me thought it was because she had filled it out in May.
Yeah.
So in May, we were the 5th one.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like there may have been other
Absolutely.
people who got in before us, it's
Of course,
completed.
since then,
Yeah.
I'm sure thousands.
Wow.
Yeah, but it
Hello,
was
you
good.
looked so French for a moment.
I
with
know.
your- You looked so French for a moment with your beret.
I have to wear this when it gets colder.
It is,
I know.
I actually printed extra copies of the
Oh.
agenda. I remember, do you need one?
I have.
What is this?
The agenda.
Okay.
I did 3.
Wow. Oh, so you're still October 18th. Anyway, it doesn't.
Oh, whoops. Well, we're not.
And this is for you.
Oh, thank you.
You can follow right along. There you go.
I think I've got a copy of this.
Oh, okay.
Did I say, yeah, I was trying to be inclusive.
Yeah.
So you probably, were you copied on the, so then Susan tested positive for COVID. Did you see
Copy
those?
of what?
Susan tested positive for COVID. So
Oh,
she's
no.
Zooming tonight.
And
And
then
then-
Michael, in an abundance of caution, is zooming. And then maybe Corey, because she was exposed to Susan on Monday.
She went to a dinner thing and found out later that somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I just got boosted, so I don't have COVID, but I do have the rash that I get whenever I get a COVID booster, so.
Didn't Susan and Michael like 2 weeks ago say, oh, we got our shots tonight, so we might get really
Yeah.
tired?
Yeah.
I
we
was
did.
like, I feel like they,
Yeah.
maybe it was, I don't know.
Not-
The one time I had COVID, which was a year ago,
Mhm.
I had gotten the booster 2 weeks before and then got COVID.
Oh.
Wow. So,
Well, I haven't seen Susan person to person for quite a while, so.
Well, that's good.
oh, good, okay.
I thought I was gonna have to start asking Michael questions. When's the last time you seen your wife? Because he was like, maybe I'll come in person. Do you guys mind? I was like, well,
You live apart.
okay, we're being recorded, so I have
Maybe
to.
yeah,
But-
are we already being recorded?
I
I'll
think we
show up.
are, yeah.
Yes, we are.
All right, we'll save that for later. I did have a map of the CEA and stuff in case, so when Gretchen.
Oh, somebody's in the waiting room. Maggie
Thank you.
Mitchell, Michael Mitchell?
Maggie Mitchell.
Yeah, I brought a map of the CEA.
You did? Oh, a big one, good, because mine are not. Thank you, Karen. Maggie Mitchell. Thanks, Karen. Hey, Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah, that way.
Da-da-da. Now, where'd you get these from?
Staples.
Maggie, can you hear us? Okay, great. So we've got a couple minutes. We'll just give people a minute.
That's the map we submitted to the DEC.
This is?
Oh, maybe Corey isn't coming.
Yeah.
Uh,
Should probably Zoom.
Yeah, maybe we'll, but so we're not official.
We don't have a quorum, so yeah, we just
I
can't.
don't think
Does she have COVID?
She was.
At a dinner
She
party
was
or
with
something.
Susan Monday.
Mhm.
Oh,
So Susan's getting everyone's stuff. Susan's active in the town.
All of
An entire town came down with COVID.
So we would expect to have more waiting, waiting room,
Oh.
there's one in the waiting room.
Michael.
There we go.
I like.
Oh.
Hi.
Gretchen.
Hello. Hi, must be Amanda. Hello. We're gonna give it 1 minute more. We still have some people that might be joining via Zoom.
Okay.
So if you guys want to sit at the table,
Yeah.
I think because we got the maps, I think that might make sense.
Okay.
Do you guys know Ken?
I know Ken.
Yeah.
I know Ken. This is Amanda Bevan. She's.
Hi, Amanda, glad to meet you.
And Julia, you know,
Hi,
Jenna,
Julia.
and
Ray.
Ray.
Hi, Gretchen. Amanda?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm Erin. We've changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And we have people joining via Zoom because
Yeah.
there's been a bit of a COVID thing.
Yes.
Hi, Michael.
There you go.
Is the camera over here?
Yeah.
So, oh, this is good that you've got some big maps. I
Yeah.
brought a projector thinking, how are we even gonna talk
Oh.
about this?
Susan won't be joining.
That's great. Oh, good. Thank you, Ken.
Right,
Oh, yay!
Susan won't be joining us today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here. Nope, it's you. These are my papers. This is, I have an extra agenda. Oh, sorry. Wait. No. Do you have?
Somebody can have mine.
Oh, I can make a
put
copy.
that
I can make a copy. I'm not thinking. Michael, is Susan gonna be zooming with you or separately?
She's not zooming at all.
Oh, she doesn't feel well. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Not doing well.
please give her our best.
Not allowed. That way, they don't assign me anywhere.
Next one on the agenda as well. And we'll call it to order, yeah? Okay, thank you. Sure. Okay, can everyone hear me on Zoom? Okay, great.
Great.
So, call to order, roll call, we have, in-person Julia Blelock, Erin Moran, Corey Smith, Ray Langford. Via Zoom, we have Michael Culver. And then, it looks like we have a guest, Maggie Mitchell. Do you want to introduce yourself and just, are you just observing, or was there something in particular you wanted to ask?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me? Okay. My name's Maggie Mitchell. I just like watching the meetings. I am also on a task force for the youth center. I've lived in town for like 10 years. And yeah, I think on one of the last meetings you had said that you wanted more people in the public to show up to the meeting. So I just
Great,
thought I would-
glad to have you. Glad to have you. And then we also have as guests, we have Gretchen Stevens and Amanda Bevan. Devon from Hudsonia. They're going to talk about the CEA for those of you who aren't here. Gretchen and actually Ingrid, another person, they were pivotal and they were just a plethora of information and helped us with the CEA getting it passed. So to say a subject matter expert is not even
Doesn't approach it.
doesn't. So, and as you all know, the planning board tapped us on the shoulder, which is normal to say, oh, and I'm jumping ahead, sorry, I'll get back to the agenda. To say, they said, hey, guys, Woodstock Environmental Commission, we would like to know what you will advise and what restrictions you would recommend for the CEA with development and newly appointed in the area. So that's why we're gonna have that discussion. And I jumped ahead. Adopt the agenda, we actually can do. Does anybody want to move to adopt the agenda?
Yes, I move to adopt the
I'll
agenda.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approve the minutes. Julia sent those around.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't check for correspondence. I'll go check that after the meeting. Announcements, any announcements? Okay. I'm going to hand it over to you, Gretchen and Amanda. And I know that you had some communication with them and sent some questions. So I don't know what you want to talk about first, but thank you. And can I just say thank you so much for coming back, really? And thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you. We all really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's good to be here, and I'm glad the planning board asked me the questions, so.
Good sign.
Yeah. And Julia was deeply involved in putting together the CEA, and
As was Erin, of course.
yeah, yes.
We all were, yeah.
But were either of you in any of the meetings or the public presentation or anything back when this was
No.
still in process?
I was not, but I just watched that recently.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So I guess I'll just say a few things just by way of general introduction to the CEA. It is, it's something that the town has formally adopted. It is, now registered with the state, and it has a number of purposes, but it is mainly not it's not a mechanism to impose land use restrictions. That's not its purpose. It's meant to educate people. It's meant to educate landowners who are within the CEA or next to it or near it. It's meant to educate developers who are thinking of planning new land uses within the CEA, and educate town agencies like the planning board and like the WEC, who are reviewing new proposed land uses. Also the town in general who's thinking about comprehensive planning. There's lots of information that was pulled together during, while the working group was establishing this, that could be very important for general planning for the town. There is one requirement though, once a CEA is established, in addition to its educational purposes, for any projects that are within the secret process, the environmental review process, the lead agency who's leading that review needs to consider the special features for which the CEA was designated, and consider the potential impacts of the whatever project they're reviewing on those special features, and must provide a written explanation of the potential impacts on those special features. They can make the lead agency, in many cases it's the planning board, can make any decision that they see fit about whatever project they're reviewing, but they need to explain the potential impacts to the CEA features. And that's the only legal requirement. Otherwise, the hope is that everyone will use the information about the CEA that's in the justification document, which you probably have all seen, and use it, whether it's a private landowner thinking about how they're going to manage their own land, or a developer doing their work, or a conservation organization who's thinking about, acquiring a piece of land or anything. We hope that the information will be used widely, and that that one requirement for projects that are undergoing the secret review, that the agencies and the applicant pay close attention to the features of the CEA. So,
That's it.
well, that's just the sort of introduction.
Yeah.
The questions that Corey sent. Or are good ones, good ones to discuss here. One of those are what are the top 3 issues of concern you would suggest bringing to the Woodstock Planning Board around developing land within the Xena Woods CEA? And there are a bunch of issues that are laid out in the justification document. And always I would refer people to that document.
And that's on the website, the town website, right? Okay.
Yeah, it has been. I assume
Yeah.
it's still there. Yes. Didn't bring it, did you? Bring it?
Yes. I agree.
I don't actually need it, but we might want to refer to it. So just as just a little bit of review, the main features for which this CEA was designated, the features that stood out to the working group, was looking all over the town, looking at the whole town, and before deciding to designate this area. Those features were one, that the large forest that runs through the CEA, which is a forest that extends both north, south, and east into adjacent towns and adjacent areas. There's a unconsolidated aquifer that covers most of the northern half or more of the CEA.
I apologize, but I don't understand the term unconsolidated.
Yeah.
aquifer.
It's not a great term, but it just means an aquifer, a place where groundwater is stored in sand and gravel deposits. Those are fairly unusual places. You usually find them along, bottomlands, stream corridors, and so forth. Most of our drinking water wells, including most of your wells here in Woodstock, are drilled in bedrock. You're tapping into seams and fissures in bedrock. An unconsolidated aquifer, though, the water is held in these coarse sand and gravel deposits. And what it means is, for one thing, there's usually large volumes of water in these areas. It's usually very accessible. You can usually tap into it from shallow wells. But sand and gravel is not as effective at filtering water, filtering pollutants out of water. So these areas are also very susceptible to contamination from things that we're doing on the surface. The other thing is that the sand and gravel areas are also very important for recharging groundwater. If you imagine, think of coarse material, how water would run through sand and gravel, and how more quickly that would happen than trying to run through silt and clay. So it's abundant water, easily accessible to people who are trying to drill wells, and but it's also very important for groundwater recharge. These areas on the surface, and these areas are the groundwater is very susceptible to contamination. So all of those have big implications for land uses. You wouldn't want to site a gas station in one of these unconsolidated aquifer areas. So the large forest is connected to other large forests, the aquifer. Within the forest are many wetlands and small streams. Among those wetlands are at least 20 vernal pools. It's an amazing concentration of vernal pools. Vernal pools in these forested settings, those are the best places for vernal pools. Vernal pools, as you probably all know, they're small wetlands. They are isolated from other kinds of wetlands. They are pools that hold water in the winter and spring, but they dry up at some point during the summer. And it's that drying and the isolation that keeps them free of fish. Fish are very good predators on amphibians and lots of other things. And there's a certain group of amphibians that doesn't do well in other kinds of wetlands because of fish predation. But they require these fish-free places to breed and develop into at least sub-adulthood before they move out of these. And then they use the forest, the surrounding forest, for the rest of their lives. So vernal pools inside forests are a special habitat complex. It's the whole complex of habitats, the pools plus the forest. The other thing that's important is that these amphibians often need to be able to move between pools. So having protected forested movement areas between pools is also important. And that is one thing that this CEA has in spades. There are land use implications for that too. If you're designing new roadways or yards and other things that would fragment the forest and pose hazards to the amphibians that are needing to move between wetlands. I forget how I started that sentence, but
You want them to be able to travel from pool
Yeah,
to
you
pool
do.
and not have a roadway in the middle of it.
that is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what other things? I'm just trying to think of the other special features, maybe not this, but the justification document. No, it's
I haven't.
okay. Thank you. There is the more than half of the CEA is within an area that's been identified as an important foraging area for rare bats. In this particular area, the rare, well, probably, many of our bats are now ranked as New York State species of greatest conservation need because the cave-dwelling bats have been so harmed by the white nose syndrome. But Indiana bat and northern long-eared bat they're known to overwinter near here, and they are known to use use areas here for summer foraging. Let's see. The forest here has been designated by the DEC and the New York Natural Heritage Program as in the top 10% of all the forests in the Hudson Valley
In the
region.
Hudson Valley, that was larger than that, like the state or.
I think this was Hudson Valley,
Okay.
but either one is pretty good. And those are on measures of size of the forest and fragmentation and wildlife habitat values and stresses.
Lack of
stresses,
fragmentation.
lack of fragmentation, lack of stresses, obvious stresses. And what else? I think carbon storage is in there. So that's this is a highly ranked forest. Let's see, bat roost. There's a rare damselfly that's been identified, I think, just outside the CEA, in wetlands just outside the CEA, and could very well be occurring within the CEA. And I think that is it. The small streams, the wetlands, the vernal pools.
the aquifer, the large forest.
So the top three, first question, the top three concerns. I guess I would say the top three would be, one would be the fragmentation, that the forest fragmentation, any features that would break up the forest or would be separating the pools and other wetlands from other pools and other wetlands. That would be a biggie here. Buffer zones along wetlands and streams. I know Woodstock has a pretty good wetland ordinance. Is that in the process of being revised?
No,
No.
It's not?
No.
should it be?
Well, I think there was some effort to.
Oh, you mean with
or idea-
buffers? Or-
Yeah, or some simpler way
We were
to,
talking about that for
Yeah.
a while, yeah.
some simpler way
I think
to designate the buffers.
Tabled or just put aside for the moment. We have a lot of other things going on in town, but
Yeah.
yeah, would you suggest that that be?
Visited?
Mm, That, I wasn't about to go there.
Okay.
But,
Right.
But,
That was back in the 90s, but.
Yeah.
that was
And-
as a CEA, all of our wetlands.
Well,
all
just,
the state regulated
Yeah,
wetlands.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
state
just
regulated.
a couple of them.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a couple of them. That's right, but you do have a local wetland law, which does designate buffers along your wetlands and streams. And that is good. You have, it's a 100-foot buffer on, I don't know if it's many or all wetlands, and I guess it's 50 to 100 feet, or actually 30 to 100 feet along on streams, depending on various complicated, a complicated formula. Yeah, that's what I think someone was talking about, trying
Yeah.
to revise.
Arlene with,
Yeah.
she was with them, has worked with DEC. She was talking about the, if there's two wetlands that potentially, that the buffer overlaps to kind of connect them and say, okay, or if it was
Oh.
close to it. So if they were maybe two wetlands were like 80 feet apart or 180 feet, that they should be connected.
Yeah, okay.
Does that sound familiar, Julia? Yeah.
She was working on that, or that is?
No,
No,
we talked about it and it was tabled.
And we were going to do something about it, and somehow with the price of other business, it languished, but something we could bring up again, yeah.
I mean, there was another thing, you have a very complicated way to actually figure out what your buffer is on streams, and according to the things about the watershed and the topography, and it was a formula developed by, I don't know, maybe someone in the DEP, and no one could actually figure it out after that, so I don't know how you've been dealing with it. We don't have to talk about that, but it probably would be nice for everyone if you had just
Like a
sort of
formula that
standard
you
way.
knew that you could
Well,
apply.
yeah, so it's probably in bigger things. It says, it's 30 to 45, 60, 75, 90 or 100 feet, depending on upstream drainage area, the slope of the land.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and then it's open to
Topographical maps.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
We don't have to go there, but one thing that you could think about, because the town has recognized this CEA area as something special, and you do have this extraordinary concentration of vernal pools, you might think about, establishing, I don't mean necessarily in a formal way, but recommending a broader buffer around the vernal pools, for example. And possibly along streams. There are many more streams than are shown on this map, I think. No, actually, this looks like we've got the streams. The same along streams. You could a broader buffer. The broader, the better, of course. I mean, 100 feet, that's decent. Lots of wildlife need lots more than 100 feet to get to the places that they need to get to regularly.
What about, we have come across some situations where it seems like wetlands grow over time. So even though it's a mapped wetland, it might be on like the, a New York State site. When looking at that, it's a good idea to get a recent map done because that wetland borders could have changed. Is that accurate that the wetlands?
Well, two things about that. One is that whatever you see on a public map is not good. That boundary is no good on a site plan. I would never use that on a site plan, something site specific, because that boundary has been drawn by someone looking at an air photo and trying to sketch it.
Yeah.
That's so I would never use that boundary. It always require a on-site delineation. The other, do wetlands grow? Wetlands do sometimes change their dimensions. Usually that's minor unless there's, beaver activity or some big new road has impounded the wetland in ways that it hadn't previously been flooded, or something like that.
Okay.
But, yeah. The other thing is, you may know that it won't happen for a few years, but the state regulates wetlands is changing.
DEC?
Yeah. In the 2022 state budget, they passed it, a law that will, starting in 2025, the state will no longer be relying on their old maps. Their old wetland maps. Good thing. That they're not relying on those. And starting in 2028, they will be starting to regulate wetlands of 7.4 acres and larger.
Wow.
Which is, good, sort of feels like a baby step. Because a 7.4 acre wetland is still a very large wetland, and the state doesn't protect smaller wetlands at all. Except if they do protect a few smaller wetlands if they're deemed to be of unusual local importance. So that those are just a few.
7.4 acres. How on earth did they arrive at that?
Don't ask me.
The formula.
Don't ask me. So that's coming, but not for a while. So nothing will change for the time being. Okay, so I was talking about buffer zones. Yeah, I would fragmentation buffer zones, and buffer zones could be, I mean, if the town and if the planning board thinks that larger buffer zones would be appropriate here, they certainly would be more protective of streams and wetlands. And they could help some of the vernal pool amphibians survive. They could help some of the other wildlife that need to move between the wetland and upland areas. And the third concern might be stream crossings. If any new development is going to require crossing a stream with a driveway or something else, to pay attention to how that crossing is done. If it's going to be a culvert under the driveway, to make sure the culvert is designed so that it's not impounding water, so that it can accommodate all the volumes of water that are expected in the larger storms that we're expecting to be more frequent. And so that, and it's designed and installed so that it doesn't interrupt the passage of animals upstream and downstream. Culverts are often undersized for the amount of water that they need to handle, and they're often installed in ways that create sometimes 100% obstruction of the stream itself and completely interrupt the stream ecology. There are lots of animals, fish, invertebrates, salamanders that need to move regularly up and downstream, and a culvert can completely disrupt that movement.
Is there an accurate gauge for how large the stream is and how long, how large the culvert needs to be? Is there a
Yeah.
formula
And
for
deep.
that?
And deep,
deep,
so that
yes,
water
yeah,
could
all
still,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah, there is, and the DEC has some guidelines. And you could get them just by saying New York State stream crossings or something, and you'd probably get right to those guidelines. The general idea, though, is that the culvert should be at least, I think, 1/3 larger than the stream channel itself, the most obvious stream channel. And the invert of the culvert, if it's a round culvert, the invert needs to be buried so that the stream substrate is continuous through the culvert, and there's no change. There's no change in the elevation of the substrate or anything, and that it feels like a natural passageway to animals that are moving through
I
it.
might just add that Ulster County's done a lot of work with the culverts and with the DEP, especially for the state and the county roads. But, you know, like Tim Concha at the DEP has a master's degree in culvert design. So, I mean, we have, you know, resources to really get
Right, and they,
answers to those questions.
they checked them out pretty recently, didn't they? Didn't they check them out in the Ashokan stream?
Oh, they did an
They did an
assessment.
Well, they, you know, the inventory, all of them based on
Yeah,
the North Atlantic fish, whatever,
Whatever
migration.
that is, yeah.
Whatever that is.
NAACC or something, yeah.
Right. So we have, you know, resources to ask those questions.
So, yeah, that inventory would have been, you know, looking at all the culverts under public roads in Woodstock and identifying the ones that were undersized for the water volumes they need to handle, and the ones that are elevated or otherwise creating an obstruction to the stream animals. So you have that information. As far as, you know, in the CEA, you just want to, the planning board would make sure that if there is going to be any new development that is crossing a stream, they pay close attention to how the culvert is designed and installed, so that it doesn't create an obstruction to the water or the animals. So that would be question 1, the forest fragmentation, the buffer zone, the one which are the top 3 issues of concern. Forest fragmentation, buffer zones. I would put with that in wetland connectivity, that is making sure that there are good connections between wetlands and stream crossings. The second question was, what would be the ideal way to cluster homes? Well, we'll start national development. Yeah, so you know, we looked at, Amanda and I were looking at these maps earlier, and let me see what.
If you go one sheet down, it shows what they're thinking about doing.
Oh, yeah, that's the proposal.
That's the proposal.
So you could look at that and say, I've changed this, changed that kind of thing.
Right. What I understand, someone told me, was it you, Corey? Someone said that the golf course is off the table now.
That's what they say. That's, I mean, that's not official. They haven't submitted a new plan yet.
Okay.
I've heard that from the listing agent as well.
Okay. So, but they still want to put in they want to do a big subdivision, like a bunch of residential.
Although they have not purchased the property yet.
Really?
Yes.
And it's, according to a friend of mine, it's expired, the listing has expired, so she can no longer check it to see, did it close or did it not?
It
No.
was gonna be the following Monday.
Yes, and evidently they.
Yeah, I hope that
I already have that. Here's the date.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is a bit. So, we were looking at all the things that I've just been talking about, the large forest, the clusters of pools, many of them are in the bluestone wild forest, but there's a big cluster right here. Here, as you can see it, the green blobs, those are vernal pools with a buffer around them. And so there's this big cluster
Yeah.
right in here. And so I was designing a subdivision here, which includes, most of this land, and it runs up to here essentially. So it's
The parcel.
the parcel, all the parcels together. I would certainly want to avoid the vernal pools. Actually, yeah. It looks like some of them aren't showing up on this map, but that's okay. The other thing is, whenever I'm thinking about new development in a forest, I'm thinking, well, we're going to minimize fragmentation of the forest. You'd want to keep any new development at the edges of the forest and not put it in the middle of the forest. So you're reducing the forest at the edge, but you're not putting big new disturbances out into the middle of the forest. So thinking of those two things, avoiding the pools and keeping any new development near existing development, and that's, this whole development here is already a significant, fragmenting feature of this forest. I would look at, putting any new houses, accessible from this road, for one thing, and not from down here. Because down here you'd have to cross the Sawkill, and that would be a huge project there. So something accessible from this road and something as near as possible to the existing development. Now, I don't know, how many houses they'll be interested in putting in, if any, but the more that they could concentrate it up in this area, the less damage that would do to the large forest and the pools. And just looking at this vernal pool map, there does seem to be an area here where you would be mostly avoiding the pools. So, another thing is that this, when I saw this proposed development some time ago, I don't
It's a
even
proposal.
remember how.
Yeah.
I don't remember how it came across my desk, and I looked at it and thought, I wonder if someone is proposing this just to sort of test the CEA. Let's see what the town will do if we propose something kind of outlandish in the middle of the CEA. I mean, of all the places.
It's outlandish, all right. A golf course.
I've always thought the helicopter thing and the golf course were things that they were willing to jettison. They just put them on there so they would have something to say, oh, we don't really want that.
And they've done that.
It was a bargaining chip. And so now I'm curious, I'm with you. I'm curious to see how much of that is also a bargaining chip. Or is that really what they wanted and they're throwing away, going, look how great we are because we're getting rid of these two things.
Yeah. So who knows what's going on here and what their idea here. Did they not know that this was a CEA when they drew this up?
It's just right. I mean, it is it could, I guess if they didn't know, they didn't do their due diligence, right? So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it did kind of, it just happened. I'm curious about when you mentioned the water underneath it,
Yeah.
because to me, water gonna be the new
Water
gold.
and golf courses.
No, I mean, just having access to that kind of water, that's interesting
Mhm.
to me. And you only have to do a shallow well. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
So if I could ask a question, we are talking about conservation subdivisions in another committee on one with proposed law. And a conservation subdivision, the way it's proposed is, first of all, you remove the sensitive areas, you can't even build on those at all. And then of what's left, you do cluster. So what you're saying you recommend, it sounds like what's being proposed in the law, actually, the conservation subdivision, after you've preserved all the sensitive areas, then with what's left, try to cluster.
Yes, that's right.
It sounds like what you're saying.
Now, because this whole parcels is a CEA, would that be considered sensitive in and of itself?
Perhaps, except I don't think that's how anyone ever intends the CEA to be treated.
Okay,
No one ever expects the CEA to be a hands-off area.
okay.
So, but, if you were to, designate, these areas as the most sensitive areas of the site because of the vernal pools and the streams and other wetlands here. That could be I think I don't know what it is in your conservation subdivision law, but in others, it's something like 80% of the site is meant to be set aside. Do you know?
Well,
what it is?
ours, what's being proposed, and it hasn't been passed yet, what's being proposed is, first of all, you set aside the sensitive areas.
Yeah.
And then with the acreage that's left, you go through whatever the zoning is R8, R5, R3, you go through that. But then of that, of this left, 50% has to be preserved.
50%, okay.
So you first subtract out sensitive, and then of what's left, you preserve 50%.
50%, okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure how the math would work out here, but that would be my guess, as probably the best place. And the reason, up here, there's already, what is it? Is that like what's that strip of, there's a strip of cleared land that runs right up through here.
It's a
Like
helicopter.
That whole thing
It's
it's an old, like.
It's an
like
old
air-
landing strip.
It's
like a
a-
land
yeah,
strip.
yeah, it is
That's what it
actually
looks
in
like.
use and existing, and it's been
Okay.
grandfathered in because of that. So
Okay,
it's like an FAA acknowledged and regulated. And what was interesting was the Woodstock National was proposing to make it just a helipad. So right now it's small planes and helicopters, hence the strip. And they were talking about just a helipad.
okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah, so, I would say that would be fair game for putting new, residences, just because it's already disturbed,
It's already cleared.
It's
Yeah.
already cleared,
Yeah.
lots of disturbance associated with that already, so you wouldn't be, harming the best part of the forest. So, let's see. Let's see, okay. It's just a question, just for my curiosity, if, with the conservation subdivision, who would hold the easement? Is that written into the,
It would have to be decided.
yeah,
One way to do it is you have a bunch of small lots and then one huge lot. And then one person can't subdivide that lot further because it's already at capacity. And the other way to do it would be to have some kind of an easement or some kind of a agreement of the rest of it being preserved and who's gonna maintain it. So I think it would be up to the project to figure out exactly
one
how.
project by project, okay.
Yeah, and the planning board will probably get involved. Planning board's had conversations about that.
Right, so this question says with, current zoning, 50% of the land will be preserved as per conservation subdivision zoning laws. Will this affect the forest quality? Yes. Well, right, so the question is, would, you know, with current zoning, 50% of the land will be preserved as per conservation subdivision law. In fact, more than 50%, but 50% of the area that seems to be developable would be preserved. And the question is, will this affect the forest quality? Yeah, it all depends on how that would be designed, you know, where you put your houses. There are better or worse ways to do that. But the more things can be clustered together and clustered next to other developed areas, that's just the way to minimize the harm to the forest.
Quality was.
Yeah.
Laura, do you know the development that's going in off of Glasgow that Melissa Myers is doing? Do you know anything about that little development?
We
I don't
looked
know
at
a
it.
lot about it. I know that I think a lot of us.
That
relate
makes
to
sense.
that.
Yeah,
We
know
looked
about
at
it.
that.
We
We
visited
did a
it,
site visit we
yeah.
can talk to, yeah.
Okay,
That
I
was before this and it was similar, but on a smaller.
yeah, because it's only, I think it's 100
77
acres or something like
77, I
that.
think,
maybe.
Yeah.
Or anymore.
And they had what, 13 lots or 12 lots or something?
Yeah,
But
that's
they
right.
also were talking about, yeah.
I was
well,
just curious whether in designating where the houses get put on that lot, did they say, oh, make it closer to the, or how is that?
Yeah, we
done?
had lots
It's
of
before the
discussion.
planning board and it's hard to find out what exactly they want to do, what they're putting on paper.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, there's the planning board says you can do this and someone goes and does something else, clear cuts. So I believe it's still in front of the planning board.
Okay.
Well, the other issue is since the Housing Oversight Task Force law has not been adopted, it's still the old fashioned rules. So if you're R8, then you cut into all property, all lots are at least 8 acres. Or if you're
Okay.
R5, all lots are at least 5 acres. So
Okay.
they're gonna cut it in what I think is environmentally insensitive, because you're gonna cut up and you're gonna break up stuff rather than the clustering, because the current law doesn't allow for conservation subdivision.
Okay.
The current law doesn't allow for clustering. In that way, you have to, each lot has to be at least as big as what the, you know, R8, R3.
What the zoning, R8, R5, R3, whatever, yeah.
Right, and if we get it passed, the law, the new law passed, then they will not get a building permit until they match the current law, even though they're in the process now.
Okay.
But right now, there's nothing that says they're allowed to do a conservation subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, initially, I believe there were 15, 20 homes and she said, oh, it's gonna be my family living here. I said, "You have
It's a pretty big family.
You have a
Yeah.
big family. Yeah. She said, no, it's just my family.
Okay, so the next question is, how much of a buffer zone do wetlands and vernal pools really need to weather development? Yeah, and so I guess what I would say is, first of all, the broader the better. And that, thinking about wildlife, always, the broader the better. But, you know, I know there are reasons why you can't have an endlessly large buffer zone. If you're thinking about the, you know, I would think about not just buffer zones, but connectivity and that,
Yeah.
and the amphibians that breed in the vernal pools, and these are the marbled salamander, spotted salamander, Jefferson salamander, and wood frog. Some of those move long distances into forests, you know, 1,500 feet. 2,000 feet sometimes. See the scale on this. Scale. It's not. Got a scale here. I just want to get.
Looks like we lost Maggie.
I think she's having connectivity problems because she keeps coming back and forth. Yeah.
I hope she's not voting. No.
Right, so it looks like 2,000 feet. It's roughly that distance. And so for many of these pools, that could be the distance that these amphibians might need to move
Yeah.
to get to the part of the forest where they spend the entire rest of the year. So the vernal pool it's an important and essential part of their habitat, but the forest is every bit as essential.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, that's 2,000 feet. They're not necessarily everyone gonna move that far, but some will, and any hazards that are in there, lawnmowers or bulldozers or vehicles, could interrupt them. So, yeah, so how much of a buffer zone? It depends. We think of a 750-foot conservation zone around vernal pools, and that's a figure that was put forth by a herpetologist who's done a lot of work in the region. And he says that will encompass a lot of the upland habitat that these amphibians need. Not all of it. Some of them will move much farther than that. But that would do a lot. Now, the town is not going to be imposing a 750-foot buffer zone.
It's Woodstock. No, I'm kidding.
But we think of that as not so much a buffer zone as a conservation zone. So if you think of 750 feet from these pools, think of, okay, lots of the amphibian activity will be within that zone. How can we make sure that that zone is connected to other wetlands? And if we're going to put something in here, put it in at the edge of that zone instead of right through the middle of it. And, you could think of that 750 feet as a sort of a place to carefully consider where you're going to put any new developed features, if you're going to put them that close at all. Of course, the better thing is to keep them away from this whole complex if you can. But I don't have a good answer for that question. How wide a buffer do wetlands and streams really need? I mean, my answer, I think every ecologist's answer would be, from a wildlife standpoint, the wider the better.
Yeah.
And 1,000 feet is not too much. But you will accomplish a lot. Well, you'll accomplish, a lot with 100 feet, and you'll accomplish a lot more with 200 feet, and so forth. There is a lot of literature on this, and probably more than you would want to read, but there's a very good document put out by the Environmental Law Institute. It's especially designed for people who are trying to figure out buffer zones. But it gives you the results of lots of literature, lots of studies that have been done on how much the effectiveness of different buffer widths for different purposes, for protecting water quality of a stream or a wetland, or protecting the water temperatures of a stream, or protecting the habitat needs of various different kinds of wildlife. A salamander uses the land differently from a raccoon or a Louisiana water thrush. That might be.
Where is the Environmental Law Institute based?
Where are they based?
Did
I
you
don't
find it,
know. I know of them only from.
You're looking at something else.
Oh, no, I was typing,
Yeah.
it's me,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
my
yeah.
version of writing.
Sure. Got it.
But I
Right,
can
so
look
you're
it up.
thinking of what institution, what
No, you
university?
mentioned that they have a lot of literature about buffer zones, and something
Online
yeah.
is
Okay.
where I get there.
Environmental Law Institute.
That's
Okay,
right,
thank
and
you
they have a
very much.
lot of good stuff
Okay.
related to things that you all are. concerned about.
ELI.org.
That is right.
Thank you.
That is right.
Okay, good.
So just back to buffers, whatever, the wider the better, but also think about connectivity. So it's not just wetlands with their buffers that you're thinking about in isolation, but ways that wetlands might need to be connected to each other by safe passageways over land. And the final question, federal wetlands have been recently stripped of many of their former protections. Will this have any effect on our wetlands here in Ulster County? Certainly it will in Ulster County, but you in Woodstock are greatly privileged to have your own wetland law. Most towns don't, or don't have anything that's very good. You are able to protect small wetlands and put buffers around them. And so you are pretty well taken care of. You also, I believe, require that wetlands be delineated on the ground on each parcel, so you're not relying on maps. And that's great. So the answer is you're okay here, but towns all around you are not okay. And it's true that the recent Supreme Court decision pretty much removed protections from most wetlands and streams. They'll still, they still have some protections for, a stream the size of the Sawkill, and wetlands that are connected to streams.
Too chilly?
A little?
Okay.
You want it open?
Oh, no, I'm good. You might want to lock it though. Did you lock it when you closed it? I see just lock right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a chilly night.
It is.
Yes, I had snow this morning.
Really? Wow.
You have what?
I had snow this morning.
Oh.
Oh.
Great.
Yeah, we had snow at our place.
Yeah,
Columbia County.
I'm figuring out why there are 5 closets in the kitchen.
What was that?
We just bought this house. I mean, I've lived in Woodstock forever, but when we moved in, I said, why are there so many closets in the kitchen?
Oh,
And when I woke up to snow this morning, I went, oh, that's why.
okay.
I'm sure I'm gonna get snowed in a lot this
Mhm.
winter.
So you have to fill your pantry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The CEA, I'm assuming gives this land a certain amount of protection, but I'm wondering, I mean, you were saying Woodstock has buffers on their wetlands, but should we think at all about beefing them up? Are we gonna look like we're singling out this one property, or is it okay?
I think it would be applied to all CEAs. I don't think we could single it out, but I think, so we actually, this is not our first CEA.
Okay,
So in the 90s, all wetlands were considered a CEA. So,
Okay.
And now this is another one.
Well, only the state regulated wetlands are a CEA in Woodstock.
Oh, really?
And that's only
Based on
Yankeetown
size?
Pond
Cooper Lake.
and, well, Cooper Lake is a lake, not a wetland.
Okay.
So it's Yankeetown Pond and there's one other there, but that's it. So most of your wetlands are not CEAs.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wetlands between the Woodstock Meadow, not Woodstock Meadows, well, actually, the Woodstock Commons.
There's one more.
oh, yeah.
and-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
Playhouse Lane.
That's a CEA.
Okay.
And then Yankee Town Pond.
Yeah.
Plus there's some others which are
Yeah.
DEP classified.
Right.
And I guess ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's up to the planning board, so when someone puts something in front of them to develop, whether it's Yankeetown Pond or this, it's up to them to kind of look at what's going on and what they will suggest or.
Mhm.
which is what
It
we're
is
doing.
entirely up to the planning board, and, the planning board's question to the WEC was, it said what restrictions should be imposed, and I'm not sure that that's the word that the planning board would, or that you would want to use here. That, there are no restrictions
Right, it's not legally
associated with
binding.
this. No restrictions. The planning board can do whatever they would want to do, but the things that we've been talking about here, I would suggest, and it's in the justification document, are the features of concern.
Yeah.
And the things to be thinking about, the fragmentation, the buffer zones, the effects on the aquifer, the other, wildlife effects, if the rare damselfly is just off-site, could be on-site, and the planning board might want to ask for surveys. To, you know, if there's going to be some disturbance of a wetland on the CEA, is that the kind of wetland where that rare dragonfly might occur? And if so, should we get a dragonfly expert out here to do
I
a
bet you we
survey?
have one.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, the damselfly is a dragonfly?
No, they are different. I'm actually just forgetting right now if, what the species was, whether it was a dragonfly or a
I
damselfly.
think it was damn.
Damselfly.
A
Oh,
damselfly,
okay, yeah, I just
Yeah.
assumed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Gretchen, I'm not sure what everybody's gonna do. I thought I saw somewhere that you're retiring. Is that a,
Mhm.
did the WC get to vote on that? We'll miss you because you've been tremendous. for
Oh, you
Woodstock.
have,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, Woodstock has been pretty great. You know, all the things that Woodstock has been doing over decades. You
Yeah.
know, you really are kind of leaders in the region. So good for you. Good for you.
Thank you for taking the time to send the questions, because I think that really helped. And they were great. So, and obviously I'm sure it helped. So this was good.
Thank you
So
so much, Gretchen.
Yeah.
For all your time. Yeah.
yeah, well, you're welcome. And good luck with all of this.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you think the planning board might be?
Maybe when something comes up, maybe in a year, let's hope. Maybe if we could just reach out, I guess, maybe, you know, and say, hey, this came up and we didn't realize, what do you think? You know, if we can just obviously
So
stay in
going
touch.
forward and then we be in touch with you, or
Mhm.
what is?
Yeah, so I'm here till the end of the year, December 31st. And then Amanda is taking my position. Yeah. And
Big shoes to fill.
so
No.
she will be, you know, the contact for this.
Okay.
And
Do we have your contact information, or?
I'm not sure.
I think you emailed me and copied her, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, I have it,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Because it would be cool, because they're probably gonna submit some kind of revised thing.
Yeah.
And it would be really cool to get your eyeballs on that, to weigh in about where we might want to suggest they move things.
It's hard, yeah. It's hard now because we don't have anything, but
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that, the current plan that we have is not,
mhm.
according to what they're saying, no longer the plan.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
You know, the thing about the current plan is that it's allowed under the new zoning law.
It's allowed under the new zoning law.
You know,
Well, the current plan? Well, there's a lot.
you know, the plan that national.
No, because the golf course is conservation area. Here we
Yeah,
go.
but the golf course
That's right.
counts.
The
golf course
The golf courses were already allowed in that district.
Under the new zoning law.
Well, I think it's allowed in the current zoning law.
No, not the way they have it. It's not allowed at all.
You don't think so? The golf course is not? I thought it was in, around that district. We can take this offline.
Well, you couldn't build near that number of houses under the current zoning. You'd have to have the 8 acre lots.
All right.
Well, then how could they allow you to serve? So Gretchen, I have a quick question for you though. So your purview is mostly wetlands, mostly CEAs, mostly,
No, we don't concentrate on those things.
You're with Hudsonia.
Yeah,
that's
Sure.
not,
With
but
Sonia,
are you just environment in general?
well, you know, we're biologists there, so
Okay.
we study the plants and animals and habitats of all kinds.
Okay.
Upland habitats, every bit as much.
So you're not water quality so much. You're a plant animal habitat. You're a habitat person.
Plants
the-
and animals, ecology.
Hudsonia's private, right? A privately owned, like I called Hudsonia and Eric Kiviat came out to Yankeetown Pond and did a get in the water and did an actual inventory, and there's cranberries there. Who'd have thought? So
What, seriously?
yeah. So Hudsonia, so there's a resource
Mhm.
of very qualified people that anybody can reach out to, and we certainly like doing that.
Mhm.
But even residents can do it.
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yes, that's true, although I will say, my work here on the, with helping with the CEA was part of we were funded to help Woodstock and another town in years to do this by the Hudson River Estuary. Company. Yeah, it was part of, we have it's an ongoing long-term relationship with them where we assist communities with this kind of thing. So the kind of thing that Eric did for you, you paid for it.
Yes.
You paid for
Yes.
it. Yeah.
I should mention that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
We're very hand to mouth. And most of what we do, we have to find funding for one way or another. So that kind of consultation
I just wanted to, Michael, did you have any questions for Gretchen or Amanda?
You're muted.
No.
Oh, there you
No,
go.
I don't have any questions. It was a pleasure listening though.
Thank you. All right, if nobody else has any other questions? Oh, I have a question. Sorry. So I think I saw something coincidentally came up like on social media with you and bats. Was that you?
Yes.
Okay, so we do plan Earth Day and we were thinking of, is it possible to get like you to come and do like a bat presentation and have bats?
Well, we don't have bats.
Okay.
Yes, but
Taxidermy stuff?
oh, like it's taxidermy
We have a
bats.
couple.
Yes.
To show the size, so
Um,
maybe I could reach out to you about that after this, coming to our Earth Day, and because I guess now bats are going through the ringer.
Yes.
And we usually have Raven's beard. Sorry, guys. This is how you get Earth Day done. We usually have Raven's beard come and they've come for a couple of years and everyone's seen them at the school. So, and I saw your picture and I was like, oh, bats. So, okay, so I'll reach out to you about that separately.
That would be great.
Thank
Yes.
you. Great.
Yeah, Amanda is a real bat expert.
Ah.
She's been studying them for years.
I'm crazy
Yeah.
about
Really?
They're
Yeah.
amazing, amazing creatures. Yeah. Evan.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
You can stay, you can leave. We're gonna try and get through the rest of the agenda.
Okay, well, good luck with everything.
Thank
here.
you. Thank you so much for your time and.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing us in. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
So you have plans after retirement?
We'll be in touch, Amanda.
Yes, I'll be here. And I'm getting caught up on some things. I'm relatively new to this position, but
Okay, great.
yeah, so just my goal today is just to listen.
I look forward to you coming and sharing about the bats.
I thought that was a good idea. I think a lot of people would like that.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
good to keep your-
I've done a lot of bat outreach.
Okay, and I
Yeah,
looked just
like
saw
that
the
wall.
picture, so I was like, oh.
One part.
Yeah, we just posted that for bat.
Thank you so much.
That's a complicated question. It depends. And I think really what is gonna be so important is thinking about how can we support their survival
Yeah.
outside of like hibernation for bats that are
Yes, I've
being
been
impacted by
retired for
whiteness
20
and
years, so
in
this is my
particular.
work.
Yeah. And so sorry my back is too.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not an official member, so I'm just hanging out over here, so.
Laura's on the town board.
Yeah.
So she represents the town.
Oh, okay.
Big shoes.
Then I see you. And we'll see you again, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to being back.
We're not letting you get away.
No, it really is our pleasure to be here and help with these things.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I did.
Alex is always.
It is.
I am every quick to get this passed.
All right.
Hold our meeting anymore.
One thing I did want to mention was, I kind of found out I found out a week ago and I forgot to mention it. The budget hearings were today for the volunteer committees. So I went to that today at 5 and I apologize for not communicating it. So from now until the end of the year, for me in healthcare, it's like re-enrollment time, so it's extremely busy. So I turn my phone off and I turn it over because I have to. So there are days where it's not until like 4 I didn't even see your email until I got here because I have to disconnect. So I'm sorry. Anyway, so I asked for $500, which is $400 for Earth Day and $100 buffer. We've asked for more in the past. We don't get it. I said, you know what? I'm just going to ask for, the bare minimum what we need. And I also made a comment that we've become adept at applying for grants and working with other agencies that have grant money, you know, and I said, and a new member just did a grant out. So they seemed appreciative, the board seemed appreciative that we've. Laura was there. So I requested 500 on the budget, so we'll
Okay.
see. I mean, the
So did you
budget,
get the budget?
I asked for a check and I didn't get one.
So they put a number in?
I don't know.
No?
But did you vote on it today or?
Well, we voted to push the preliminary budget forward. We're gonna be tweaking it. There's gonna be a public hearing on the budget on November 9th.
Okay.
I think it's 6 o'clock at the town hall, so I need, or is it community center? We'll need to verify that. It'll be on the town calendar.
Okay.
Is that the budget for the year?
Yes, 2024. I know. Ooh. Well, we've had nothing in our budget sometimes, so
Yeah.
let's fingers crossed. We got 200. Okay, so that was, I just wanted to mention that. Fairwise.
Yeah, so, we sent a letter today, and,
Great.
Thank you, Julia, for doing that.
sure,
I thought it looked great.
good, thank you.
10 Church Road. Oh, did everybody get the resolution?
I did, yeah.
And right, because Laura was saying, oh, I didn't get it. And I'm like, crap, did I send it? So the WEC got it.
Yeah.
You didn't,
Well,
you
so-
didn't send it to Laura.
So
Like
she did,
today.
she did. I was at the budget hearing at 5 o'clock and Aaron came to the budget hearing and said, I just sent it to you. And I would like to recommend, I mentioned to Bill that it existed, and he recommended that maybe the three of us, you, Bill and I, sit down, because I do see some things that I predict he's gonna think ought to be tweaked.
Okay.
So, but I think we, if I may just say for a moment, I was at the Shady Waters showing on Saturday night, and Bill was on the panel on Saturday night, and, you know, people are pretty, excited,
Passionate about it?
passionate, there's a good word. People are pretty passionate about the topic, but what everybody seemed to agree on, in their kind of passionate way, was that the DEC dropped the ball. Because the point that Bill made is there's the visual inspection the DEC did was how many truckloads were there, how many cubic yards or whatever, and that was the visual. But they in fact had the same hydrology report that Paul Rubin's looking at. So Paul Rubin and others look at it and say, this is a disaster, it's gonna be trouble. And the DEC said, oh, looks okay to me.
Yeah.
So everybody's not happy with the DEC. And I think a really good answer or a good next step is figuring out how do we get the DEC to see what other people see? Because it's gonna be tricky to go onto private property. It'll be tricky to get a court order to say, hey, we gotta come on your property and we're gonna force you to test and we're gonna test. It's gonna be tricky when the DEC says, we see what's in the toxicology report and it's no problem.
Which
So-
they've said for 2 years, 3 years now.
Yeah, so
But
we
the
need.
fun, there's a fundamental issue here, is the DEC does not have responsibility for water quality.
No, exactly.
And
And
I
that's
would
what you
like to-
said.
I
I
would
was
like to-
just gonna ask Ken that, because you said that a couple of
You
weeks
did.
ago about don't talk to the
DEC cares
DEC.
less about the water quality
Yeah,
than the
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so
So
that's,
we need to call the water people.
okay, so
Oh.
I have gotten so frustrated with the DEC soil and their
Yeah.
complete. And I know Bill, I will say, Bill and I have had some conversations about this and he really is, we both are really looking. He's having conversations with us, you know that, right?
Yeah.
He's, you know, we're reaching out and I said, okay, fine. Forget the water, forget the soil, how about the water? So I've contacted the Department of Health, which they sent me. So they actually called me back today, 2 of them.
Right?
So they gave me contacts at the state level. They said the state, this is interesting, and I'm wondering if I should say this. They said, the State Department of Health, they knew about Church Lane. They knew exactly what I was talking about. They knew of Corollas. And they said that the state was initially contacted, Department of Health, and went up there. And I said, do you remember when? And they said, no, because I don't have a recollection of that.
No, I know the state went up there.
They did?
No, I did not.
I did not
On
either.
10 Church Road, the state.
They said they made an in-person visit.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe it was early. Because, so they do what? Yeah. So they are talking to me. They gave me a contact at, so this was the county. So usually the state will reach out to the county because they're like boots on the ground. And they'll say, you know the area, you go and do it, but the state's leading it.
Okay.
So so the county has been extremely helpful. So they gave me the contact at the state. I'm gonna reach out to them And he said they'll be fully aware of it because we know about this. So there's some weird conversations. The thing about the DEC is we have documented proof. We have documents of this soil that was deemed contaminated by the DEC. Got it.
By them.
I have a
By
broken
them.
record by the DEC. We have Carolus, Vincent, Regina, all admitting under oath in court in October. And then I just came across something too, a lawsuit where Vince is saying in his lawsuit that it's contaminated.
Exactly. He's suing Carolus for
Yes.
$2 million,
2.5.
saying that Carolus dumped contaminated fill on his property. How can you say it's not contaminated, but be suing for $2 million?
I will tell you that I've talked to Bill about that. I just
Yeah.
mentioned it, and we're gonna work something out. The other messed up thing in the response to his lawsuit, Carolus responded, "Yeah, I knew it was contaminated, and I told you."
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Wow.
Yeah.
But then it just seems like, go get it out of there. The other thing is that I don't understand, and Bill can tell me this until he's blue in the face. I read our law about illegal dumping in Woodstock. And the way that that law is written, to me, it doesn't matter what the DEC says.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about if the DEC gives you a clean bill of health, you can't go in. All it says is if we find out, if we have evidence that you have C&D dumping illegally on your property, we will go in and remove it.
yeah.
And so I just don't understand all this fancy gavoting around
Do
the
you think-
topic.
The issue is definitions, because C&D, what did get removed was big chunks. What's being claimed in the Shady Waters film is that some of the C&D got pulverized.
It did.
And when you pick up the big chunks, you still have C&D, it's just pulverized, you just don't know what's there.
And they all testified under oath,
Right.
Carolus,
Vince?
Canigliaro, his whole family, that the stuff was pulverized on site. That Vincent says in his testimony
Yeah.
that he complained to Carolus about, this is unsightly, all these giant chunks. And Carolus said to him, I'll come over and drive over it with a big machine and crunch it up.
Oh, what happened when we went for the site visit? What did you see? What did we point out? And I said,
Glass bricks.
But even if not, 200 truckloads was delivered, so 200 truckloads needs to be
Yeah.
taken off.
Yeah, and only 4 were taken away.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
the tricky part, the other tricky part is, and this is what Bill said when he spoke on the panel, is that not all of the fill was contaminated. Everybody's assuming.
How do
all
you
of it was
know that, though?
contaminated.
I'm not
We don't
trying to
know.
argue,
Well,
I'm
I
just
don't know
saying.
how he knows that, but I know his belief is 90% of it was okay, 10% of it was contaminated. I don't know how you know which is which. So it's gonna be tricky, and I also, you can quote me on this, after the
You're being
election,
recorded.
which I certainly would like to more actively help, because now that we've had the conversations going around and we have more information, I think all, some fingers point to the DEC. I hear your point, well, it's the town law, but we do have to figure out how to get a court order to say, yes, we're allowed to go on private property.
But wasn't that the point of the suit in 2020?
Well, the thought was, and your points are really good, that maybe it wasn't thoroughly thought out, but the thought was, we'll get the construction debris out, we'll get these big chunks out, and I think it, as you're saying, it was known already by Carolus and Canigliaro that they were pulverizing the stuff. I did not know that it was, until you said it just now.
Yeah.
And then I heard from the Shady Waters video that it was pulverized material, but I didn't know until you said just now that Carolus actually did it to make it not look like construction debris. That he actually came back and was gonna drive over it and pulverize
What
it
does that
on
do
the
with water
spot.
testing?
He
I
pulled,
mean, if you're gonna talk about water testing, you should not be talking about chunks of
Well,
concrete.
because we've been talking about this for so long and it's frustrating, that's why. But so my whole thing is fine, I'm gonna look
Yeah,
at the
but we've heard
water.
this conversation 100 times before.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
And we keep saying we have to test the water and the DEC won't cooperate.
Yeah.
Well, of course they won't cooperate.
Okay,
You know,
Yeah.
they have nothing to do with water
So
testing.
I think-
You can go weights and measures and
Yeah.
say,
But
the water's fine.
But Bill's recommendation, I talked to him like 2 hours ago, 3 hours, how many hours ago was that, I'm happy to be there. If you want to be just you and Bill, I respect your decision. It can be the 3 of us, but let's get a resolution that the town agrees to, because we need to figure out how to move forward.
I agree, and that's really
So
what.
what Department of Health said, what's the action there?
Tomorrow I'm going to contact the state, the two people, the girls at the state, and I'm going to get an email, because it's hard to get an email of these people, because I want to email, because that's,
Because then you have a document.
Right. And I'm gonna basically send them the report, send them everything and say, hey, do you have any, here's what I was gonna ask, tell me what you think. Do you have any resources or assistance? Can you come and look? Can you come and help us? Can you tell us, yes, this is gonna leach? No, it's not gonna leach.
Yeah,
And
we
can
had
you
a-
test the
we
water?
had a
Can they take the
resource
water
scientist,
sample?
Yeah.
But he got a job at the EPA, but he moved in June.
Who did?
Frank Young, the guy who did.
Oh,
all
yeah,
the,
that's great.
Worked us on the septic system.
That's right, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's what I was gonna ask. I'm basically saying, okay, let's just think water. Can you help us, Department of Health? Is
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Is that-
when we were all talking, the health of our citizens are at stake. And I can't understand that. I can't understand how the town let that happen. It continues to let that happen.
Long story, but anyway, I think that I think the conversations are healthy today, and we need to move forward.
Yes.
I can't speak to the
What we do
history.
now? We
Yeah.
have to move
You know,
forward.
one thing that surprised me from reading the lawsuit, the complaint that the Amy's have brought against the town. Because when I talked to Bill, he talks about how we tested the water and all it showed was coliform. The Amy's allege in their suit that the water was never tested for PHAs and PFAS. And so I just keep thinking, well, how much does that test cost?
Not a lot.
It's a lot.
So my feeling is I will give you the money. Go test the water for that. I will give you the money out of my own pocket.
Yeah.
Go test the water.
I got quotes and sent them, this was like 2 years ago, from different water companies.
Okay.
And sent them, I think the most expensive one, and I had Bob say, because they're saying to me, what do you want us to test for? And I was like, hey, Bob. And he gave me a whole Excel spreadsheet, and then he's like, here, I gave it to them. The most expensive one came back at $1,500.
So why are we not doing that?
So anyway, we're gonna move forward with this.
Okay.
We're gonna move forward. So
Okay.
I'm gonna contact Department of Health tomorrow about water. And we're gonna sit down and talk about this resolution. So we are all happy with the resolution as is.
Yes,
I don't know,
I'm not happy with the resolution.
You're not? Okay, so we
No,
need to,
because it
before
doesn't-
we
it
sit
doesn't
down, I
discuss-
think we need to.
Yeah, it doesn't discuss water, as I recall.
No, because the one we did in 2020 addresses water, which I was gonna say, do we wanna revisit that one and just maybe tweak it and represent it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right, so Laura, the WEC needs to talk some more about the resolutions and tweak
Yeah.
them, and then we'll
We'll get
together.
One more thing I will say about the Shady Waters presentation, they had, besides Paul Rubin and Bill on the panel, they had a lady, Catherine, I think is her name, but I could be wrong.
No, I think
No,
it's,
you're
I
right.
can't remember what I'm saying.
But she was really good, because one thing she talked about a certain test, where you take soil and you put it in distilled water, and then you see what leaches out. And so she was talking, and that seemed like an idea that might be good too. I know you're talking about testing water, but if you test the soil and see what leaches out, you're kind of figuring out what's gonna eventually go in the groundwater.
The tricky thing about that was Corilla's, in the testimony at the trial from 2020, they talk about how he brought in clean fill and buried the dirty.
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's what it
So
says.
you
It's
just gotta
something-
know how deep do you go? You
Well,
know?
that's a really good, but it all got moved, because remember, it was all over here, and it
Right.
all got, whatever didn't leave, because it was C and D, got moved to the berm. So how do you find it? It's
Yeah.
probably all mixed up. It's a really,
Yeah,
it's not
tricky.
for.
Oh, I have an idea. How about we just remove all of it and then test it? We remove all of it and then test it.
No, I think that was what we said the last time. Am I completely? remembering?
No.
No, you're right.
We were talking about removing,
Just remove
that
it.
was to be the
because-
resolution, and
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
resolution became something else.
Well, because Bob and I, and Bob's experience being on the WEC and with the previous resolution that we wrote passed, has had nothing done with it. We said, let's write a resolution that we think the town board will agree to.
Okay.
That I know, and it was
Okay.
hard, and
Yeah, of course,
it was very
of course.
hard.
I know, of course.
And the thought is maybe the next resolution.
Yeah.
Because maybe.
Yeah.
Santa's coming. All right, so trying to move the meeting along.
Santa, come on,
All
Santa.
right,
But did Michael want
sorry.
to?
Did you have something to say, Michael?
I had nothing further to say.
But you said test the water. I heard you say test the water.
Yeah, that's what I did say.
Okay. And when we say test the water, sorry, we're talking about just the Amy's well or what?
Yeah, I think that's.
What about other surrounding?
Maybe
wells?
the
No,
house.
I think that you get an expert in there to tell you where to test the water.
My
Okay.
concern is like if the water test comes back clean because it hasn't had enough time to leach
That's-
into there, then it's like, oh, okay, everything's fine, and it's not fine.
Like
That's,
Catherine and Paul Rubin are experts, and they'll tell you exactly what needs to be done. I think
Yeah.
Paul Rubin's letter told you exactly what needs to be done.
okay.
Yeah, I will say also John Conrad is
And John Conrad too,
John
yeah.
Conrad is just phenomenal. Not that I don't like Paul Rubin, I'm just saying. All right, next, moving along. Susan's not here. Is there just an update?
I
Same
was
status
not,
quo?
wasn't able to make it to the meeting today. There was a great sellout concert, so they.
What?
I have an
I was darn lucky to get in.
They locked the doors.
Sell out. It was right?
So-
Yeah.
I got one of those in the
Yeah.
mail.
Oh, yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Yes,
I got
we did a mailing. And I already said the property did not, they didn't close on the property. They
Postponed it.
they
They
extended.
postponed it for approximately 3 weeks, give or take.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
What about 3 weeks?
They postponed disposing of, for
Oh, postponed
Woodstock
3 weeks.
National.
They're
Yeah.
clearly new to Woodstock that they think something's gonna get decided in 3 weeks.
Concerned.
They
No.
should be concerned.
Concerned, I think they're like, well, we need to.
Well, when you drive down Xena Road and the signs are everywhere.
Well, and again, I'll remind you guys, I actually reached out and have been in touch with Evan, but it was in September. And he said he'll come and talk to us, but then he was like, we're preparing for the closing. I said, you know what, after, let's just, I said, right now, it's technically maybe not even, I said, you might not propose anything. So I said, after October, we'll talk. But yeah, they're willing to, I don't know. Okay, sorry, moving along.
Next.
All right, okay. Calamar, I spelt it wrong too, I've realized.
Kalmar Lane.
CALAMAR.
CALAMAR, like calamari. I did reach out to the planning board, Michael, and they have not submitted anything yet, calamar.
Okay.
So,
So that's that.
yeah, so it's status quo.
I mean, as things looked, the design, Michael, that you sent for the layout of the thing,
Uh-huh.
I was surprised.
They look good to me, but what do I know?
It looked pretty good. The only thing that I would say is if you're gonna have a bridge that goes across the stream and you're gonna have a tent out there, I used to live on the stream and I know how the sound carries up those stone walls at night. I would say make sure the lights that go to that little island across the stream cut off at 10 o'clock. And you have a gate so that people can't go over there and have a loud party where the sounds are gonna interrupt your neighbors, and your neighbors shouldn't have to look at your landscape lighting all night long.
Isn't there a town law about lights being turned off at a certain time to avoid the birds getting confused?
They're not
I thought
particularly
there
good. There is a light ordinance. They're not particularly good at enforcing it
But I
because
thought
it becomes like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
But
I
in
think
some,
I think there are things like pesticides near a water source.
Yeah.
Putting a bridge and how they're going to, how it's going to interact with the water source.
yeah.
Okay.
There's certainly different issues there.
And they had what's that woman's name, Laura, who looks at everything? Who's with the planning.
Judy.
Yeah, it's some woman and she gave a report on it. And she was talking about the rickrack rock on the sides of the stream. And she said, right now, that's not there. Now there's vegetation there. And in the plan, it's showing like some kind of rock and
Riprap.
riprap.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, when you have like rocks on the bank.
Yeah. And so she was a little bit concerned about that destroying habitat, shoring up the stream with
And the
that.
roots can actually stabilize it.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Moving on.
I was gonna look up lights on the wall. Do you want me to do that or no?
Yeah, you can email me.
Okay, I'm listening to it.
Moving along.
Yeah.
She's in a hurry.
No, I feel like our gas, I know we all, do stuff during the day. Zoning changes. Okay, did anybody get a chance to review the chapter? I did not.
The 91 pages,
I did
was
not
part of it.
yet.
read
I
part of it.
skimmed, I looked at the one that was redlined and was looking at stuff.
So next time, do we want to table that for next
Yeah,
time? Give us
I
more
guess so,
time?
yeah.
Okay. Ken, did you look at it? You sent us the clip notes of it.
Yeah.
Ken has been, our.
I'm just gonna read Ken's email.
I think as long
Oh,
as
you read my
Ken's on
emails?
the job.
I do.
As long as, of course, he sent us 4 or 5 different things. They're all.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
then all those are the,
yeah,
Yeah,
I sent them everywhere.
right.
Oh, and one other thing, Ken, since you're on Climate Smart, the National Disaster Recovery Plan, Relief Plan, that the Climate Smart Task Force is going to collaborate with Cornell Cooperative. Bill submitted the letter of support today. I was really
cool.
surprised. Yeah, they sent it
Okay.
directly to him. So that is, the ball's rolling. The next
But I have
thing,
to create a task force.
I know, and I have you and my neighbor, and Bob is gonna be on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Bob is?
Bob
Oh,
is,
good. Oh,
yeah. So anybody who wants to be on it, because I know, you guys got so much free time.
My
let me know.
job's ending.
It is? Congratulations.
Yeah, it's okay.
Good, all right. All right, does anybody have anything else to ask, say? Meeting adjourned.
8:30.
Yay.
So Aaron, just so you know, I wait till after the meeting. So 260-54, I did a search on light and lighting. The only thing I found was string, rope, or similar low voltage lighting products. If you go to 260-54,
All right,
when I searched on light in the zoning code just now, well, the LI district came up because it's light industrial, but you don't care about that. But the only thing that actually had to do with lights was this 260.
thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody, and thank you, Aaron, for running the meeting, so.
Thank you, Aaron. I've been emailing Chris every week. I just copy and paste it now. I call, email, and call.
How are you doing? How's
We
his?
don't know, right?
I call, it
I
goes-
texted him a couple weeks
It goes
ago, and
straight to
I-
voicemail. I've
we haven't
texted
done
him an
that.
email, and now I'm just copying and pasting. Please
Is there
respond.
a family member that?
Yeah, there's this kid out in West. I'll try and find his.
Somebody connected somehow, Bill somehow found some way to connect, and I forget.
Oh, yeah.
And we found out he was in the hospital.
But it was
It
weeks
seemed like it
ago.
was his son.
I think so,
right?
yeah.
Well, he's got kids in California,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Good night, everybody.
We don't know where he is.
Good night, Michael. Thank
Good
you.
night, Michael, tell Susan to feel better.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Where's Susan? So I guess she must